Good morning, everybody. My name is Frank Furedi. I'm the Executive Director of MCC Brussels. If the phone call is for me, tell them I'm not here. Anyway, I'm really glad you could all come. This is a very, very important meeting on an issue that should be of concern to all Europeans. I sometimes think that if this meeting was to be held 50 years from now in the future, people will be asking, what happened in Europe? How did people become so stupid as to actually believe that by having a so-called Green Deal, which basically saturates the whole of social and economic life, that you could get something serious done? People will be asking the question, why was it that people in Brussels, in the Commission, couldn't see the grave economic consequences of using a green ideology in such kind of a promiscuous way? There's a lot of things to discuss in relation to this, because one of the points that's often misunderstood is that increasingly environmentalism and green politics is used in Brussels as a way of legitimating the European Union, as a way of basically suggesting that we are in the business of doing something good. In the absence of being effective, in the absence of actually managing to get things done, green politics for them has become this displacement activity that they can always bring forward and demonstrate, yes, we're doing something really important for the future of Europe. So there's a lot to discuss, and I hope that you all find the introduction stimulating, and I hope that you get stuck into the conversations both during the meeting but also in the intervals. While I'm up here, I just want to draw your attention to this report that has been published by MCC Brussels, written by Thomas Fazi, called The EU's Propaganda Machine. It is the most important publication that we produced over the last 2 years since we've been here. And the reason why it's really important is because it demystifies, it uncovers the way in which the European Commission spends millions, literally millions of taxpayers' money on pure propaganda. If you look to the report, you'll find that the budget, the EU budget, has got a significant amount of resources that are devoted towards organizations, non-governmental organizations, whose main business it is to promote the EU. It's almost like you're paying money for people to give you public relations, to make you look good. And what's really bad about this propaganda network that we've uncovered and we've talked about, isn't just the money that's been spent on it, but what's really important about this is that when you do this with a whole network of non-governmental organizations, you end up corrupting civil society. What this story is really all about is the way in which in Brussels, this NGO propaganda network and the European Commission are systematically corrupting a section of our public life which should be beyond those kinds of nefarious activities. So please read it, and more importantly, tell your friends about it, because once this report is widely discussed, then I think it can play a very, very important role in calling into question the way we see things, and maybe, just maybe, it can do in a small, modest way what J.D. Vance did in Munich, when J.D. Vance basically said that in Europe, the emperor's got no clothes. So enjoy the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank, and good morning to all of you. Thank you for joining us for today's discussion. The format will be, as many of you know, have already been to MCC conferences, that we start with 3 input statements by the speakers that we have. I'm going to present them to you as they take the stage, and afterwards we're going to have a discussion on the panel, and then with you. We'll start with a member of the European Parliament, Roman Haider, who is member in the Patriots for Europe group for the Austrian FPÖ party. His academic background is in economics, and he has a specialization in communication and mediation. His professional experience comprises communications trainer as well as a business consultant. And in his public career, he held mandates, among others, in the Economic Parliament of Upper Austria, and he sat in the National Assembly of Austria from 2008 to 2019. And that year he was elected to the European Parliament and has been a member ever since. He has also worked on Green Deal issues, including, for example, alternative fuels and the infrastructure for them. Mr. Haider, the floor is yours, about 7 to 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me, and congratulations, because normally I would not take the floor speaking English. I normally only speak German, because speaking in a foreign language is always a kind of disadvantage when you lack words. So this is a really rare occasion, and I hope you enjoy it as I do. At least I hope I will do, and you will do. My statement, my claim to our topic of today is that Green Deal is preventing growth and innovation in Europe, and even worse, it's causing our economy to shrink, and above all, it is causing our industry to migrate. I have 3 clusters of evidence to prove that claim. The first cluster is Green Deal leads to an increase in energy prices, and it destroys the competitiveness of our companies by doing so. This is very closely related with the emission trade emission trade system ETS1, and in future ETS2, and CBAM, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. I will talk about that, and of course that stupid combustion engine ban. The second cluster of evidence to prove my claim will be that Green Deal and energy transition are preventing a stable energy supply in Europe. This will not only destroy our competitiveness, but also makes innovation in core areas impossible. And the third and shortest part in the end will be, I will talk about the EU and its promise that we will receive autonomy through the energy transition. Let's go to the first cluster of evidence. Green Deal leads to an increase in energy prices and destroys competitiveness of our companies. I think in this audience, I do not have to explain what the emission trade system is. 9,000 biggest industrial companies, energy-intensive companies, industrial plants throughout Europe are involved with that. They have to buy emission when they emit CO2 emissions. They have to buy emission certificates to compensate that. The problem is the price of those certificates. I don't know if you had the chance to oversee the price over the last few years, but the price for the emission of 1 ton of CO2 in the year 2017 was about €5. You want to guess what the price is right now? €80. Yeah, if we would have we don't have, I know. If we would have the chance to show charts, it would look like this. It was very low and is now very high. 2 years ago, in 2022, it was even €100 per ton. So this is the reason why energy, this is the real reason, not any war or something like that. This is the real reason why energy prices are at that level that we have right now. And in addition to this 16-folded price over the last 7 years, 16-folded from 5 to €80. In addition to that, there are national CO2 prices in the EU, which vary greatly. For example, in Sweden, it's €118 per ton. In Poland, it's €1 per ton. In my home country, Austria, and in Germany, it's €55 per ton. Outside EU, the exist CO2 prices too. In Japan, Mexico, South Africa, Chile, and Canada, there is no nationwide CO2 tax introduced in the United States under the Biden administration, and it's sure there will be none under the Trump administration. So this clearly shows that energy-intensive industrial companies in particular are being penalized twice by emission trade system. It increases energy prices, and company will have to buy certificates at auctions. And this is a really massive competitive disadvantage compared to the rest of the world. And energy intensive industries such as chemical industry are particularly affected. One example is the enormous price increase of fertilizers from mid 2021 to January 2022. The price for fertilizers was tripled. Yeah? All due to that rise in energy prices. This is the first thing. Then that ETS, that emission trade system, will be expanded to include buildings and mobility. We call this ETS 2. This will be implemented in 2027. And when it starts, then there will be, as we know right now, an increase in prices for fuels for mobility and buildings. We expect that. These are the expected. So also goes into the wrong direction. The expected prices. As I showed you, according to a study by the Mercator Institute, price of natural gas, for example, will increase by a factor of more than 3 for private households. So if anybody of you had thought that inflation will stop, no, it will not stop due to Green Deal policy. The next increase in prices is right knocking at our doors in the next 2 years. When you talk about emission trade system, you sure have to talk about CBAM. CBAM, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, shortly explained, is the ineffectual attempt to counteract the so-called carbon leakage of European industrial companies to third countries with CO2 import duties. CBAM is only intended to make the import of products with a poor emission balance more expensive. The problem is import duties will not improve competitiveness of our export-oriented companies. On the contrary, there are fears of corresponding reactions from our trading partners. And right now, the carbon border adjustment mechanism is already the biggest stumbling block in the current negotiations on a trade agreement between the European Union and India. India is not willing to accept tariffs, additional tariff within a trade agreement. So the EU's climate policy is really effectively slowing down domestic companies from competing in one of the world's largest markets and paving the way for foreign competitors, of course. And last in this first cluster of evidence, combustion ban. This is with the ban of combustion engines. How can I say it? The EU pulled a real particular prank on our economy. It brings nothing. CO2 emission avoidance lower than 1%, but it damages it'll damage and threatens the existence of one of the most important and innovative branches of European industry, the automotive industry. In Germany, right now, it is cheaper to refuel your combustion engine than to charge your electric car. Yeah, and this problem will even get worse in the future. So this is the first, and I believe the most important cluster of evidence why Green Deal damages our economy. Second cluster, Green Deal and energy transition are preventing a stable energy supply in Europe. This not only destroys competitiveness, but also makes innovation in core areas absolutely impossible. We will have power shortages and interruptions of the power supply. Just remember what happened end of November, beginning of December last year. That dark doldrum in Germany demonstrated us what will happen and what the threats are. Price of electricity in Germany increased tenfold to a record of 936 euro per megawatt hours. And a quarter of electricity has to be important. Steelworks had to close down, price of electricity for household exploded, but it also had massive impacts on the neighboring countries. We all remember the Swedish vice prime minister who declared she was furious with the Germans about their energy policy. And in addition, there is a great fear and a great possibility of blackouts. The risk of blackouts is really increasing. We had the last major blackout because of the volatility of renewable energies in June 24, when there was a short circuit in Albania, and within 2 minutes, the blackout had spread as far as Croatia. Yeah? We didn't realize this here, but in that region it was a major problem. This is the first thing. Second thing, energy intensive industries in future sectors. Chemical industry is particularly very energy intensive and of course particularly vulnerable to high energy prices and insecure energy supplies. And the topic for the future, the increasing use of artificial intelligence, is leading to a huge increase of power consumption. Artificial intelligence requires an extremely large amount of power, both during training and use. And a request to ChatGPT, for example, consumes 3 or 4 times as much power as a Google request. Data centers right now consume 4 to 5% of global energy consumption, and an increase to around 30% is predicted. Yeah? So where should that energy come from? Cannot come from a volatile solar or wind energy power plants. Yeah? And third topic on that, EU taxonomy. EU taxonomy regulation considers investments in fossil fuels to be unsustainable, and this makes innovations in these areas massively more difficult. And now I come to the end. I know you're happy about that. Autonomy. Just 3 sentences. The EU promises autonomy through energy transition. This is a myth. That's not true. Of course not true. Copper, lithium, platinum, cobalt, rare earths are needed for that energy transition. Although all these are not short in supply, China is the main exporter. So we may become less dependent on oil and gas importers, but we are becoming more dependent on other countries, especially on China. So the dependencies are only shifting. Yeah? We will be not more autonomous, but we will be less autonomous. We will more depending on China.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Dr. Bernadette Petri, who is Ministerial Commissioner for the directly managed EU funds in Hungary. She studied in Budapest and Cambridge and graduated in law as well as economics. She specialized in economic law and in the fields of intellectual property, company and international law, and gained EU experience first in the European Parliament as an advisor and later in the cabinet of EU Commissioner Tibor Navracsics. Her current work is both with the executive branch in Hungary, and role as commissioner, and in academia, where she is part of the EU Strut Research Institute at the Budapest-based National University of Public Service. Dr. Petri, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm trying to save this. So first thing first, I'm going to somehow keep the time frame, meaning that I start my stopwatch. Yeah. So I'm so delighted to be here, to be very honest, and speaking about the Green Deal, because during these last 5 years, I always had the intention to speak about what happened during the negotiations of the Green Deal. And now I'm here, and when preparing myself, what I had in mind that somehow I have to bring some ideas how this situation happened about the Green Deal and what kind of process has led to the current problems, because we can find here notions of abuse of power, sometimes real and deep problems of the EU institutions, and also the negligence of European interests. So this is what I'm going to cover now. Let's start with, I will start with a principle coming from the Roman law, because I think for us to see clear, to see what happened really, we have to just go back to the Roman law. And in the Roman law, there is a principle that says that impossible must not be attempted. And this is exactly what happened in the case of the Green Deal, because there were just two promises. One promise that it will increase the competitiveness of European industry. And then there was a second one that it will also offer a perspective in the crisis situation, because there was the pandemic going around already. And the green transition itself will be the solution. And these two conditions were obviously not met. And when considering this situation, we can obviously wonder whether this was like an intentional thing or this was a careless thing on behalf of the European Commission, but the situation was there, so it happened. And I would like to cite President von der Leyen from that time when she has presented the Green Deal, and she gave like an overview what Green Deal will bring. So what she said was, I am convinced that the old growth model that is based on fossil fuels and pollution is out of date, and it is out of touch with our planet. The European Green Deal is our new growth strategy, so it is a growth strategy. Yeah? It is a strategy for growth that gives more back than it takes away. And we want to really make things different. We want to be the front runners in climate-friendly industries, in clean technologies, and in green financing. But we also have to be sure that, it's a very typical Commission phrase, no one is left behind. Okay, so did this really happen? I don't think it happened. And that was the basic situation when starting the negotiations in 2019. And things became worse and worse. What has led to the situation? Well, first is that there was an ideological, I would say, overindulgence. Then the second is that there was also the political composition of the EP back in time, majority heavily in favor of ultra-green policies and ultra-green aims. Then thirdly, heavy lobbying. Well, I'm going to cover this a bit more because this is an interesting thing about lobbying and the Commission in this case. And last but not least, the desire to somehow accommodate the United States. So this was also a problem. And this composition has really has led to a situation where things went very, very wrong. I would like to just mention or try to cover the main considerations the Commission had when presenting the Green Deal. So first of all, it was, so they were speaking about the necessity of climate and environmental policy and becoming the first climate neutral continent by 2050. So the Commission didn't really want to have a green transition, but the greenest transition ever. And this was obviously a problem of proportionality. Then secondly, they have also considered that we need energy security and strategic autonomy. Well, things became rather worse, as we have just heard from MEP Haider. Did the Commission ever consider the negative business effects? Well, they did. So the problem is that they did. And still, they have led and they have followed the direction they have decided about it. Because there was no reality check. And when seeing that there was no reality check, one could consider that was it really a careless action on behalf of the Commission, or was it intentional? I don't really want to say the answer for this, but we should just consider the different options. I think this is important. Let's speak about political miscalculation now, because this is crucial to have the clear view about the things that happened. So the first is pressure on behalf of the European Parliament. What did we experience? We have experienced that left-wing parties really went crazy on the Green Deal. So they made things just much worse than they have been at the beginning. And there were also the Commission initial proposal that were turned into the much heavier and much stricter legislative time frame. For instance, they were just arguing that the EU needs more ambitious targets and stricter regulations. Then they just really wanted to get rid of the opt-out options. Then they were also very much in favor of the CBAM without full industrial protections. And they even went into having great tensions with the member states. So they tried to be powerful, but instead they were just abusing their power. But so was this just coming from the left ideology, or was this thing something more serious? And when answering this question, we have to just dig into the recent lobby scandal that I would like to cover here, because I think it is really important to speak about it. That it was, I think, Dutch press Telegraph speaking about the problem of former Vice President Frans Timmermans, who actually from the LIFE program that is dedicated for the protection of nature, diversity, and the real green transition, so they have just decided to give money to lobbyists who were lobbying for the European Commission Green Deal goals, or even further. So what happened here, that instead of financing the green transition itself, they have financed their own propaganda. And this is a problem, because obviously the taxpayers' money is not for financing propaganda, especially not for financing propaganda of the European Commission. It was really dedicated to help the businesses, help the industries, help the civil societies who were really the real civilians who would like to bring closer the real perspective of green transition. But this was not the case, and well, the money was huge they have spent, so it is almost 1 billion euro. There were several NGOs concerned in this scandal, and we cannot see clear. And you know, I'm dealing with directly managed EU programs, which means that we are covering all the programs. Among them, there is one program, LIFE. And we just simply don't know what else happened with the other programs, because we can often see SERF program going to crazy, financing crazy initiatives. So more clarity should be brought on this, because this is really and truly a problem. I have 2 minutes left. So what I'm doing now is to conclude, because I would say that we are just before the MFF negotiations. And I think that it is really time to put all these things on the table, because if we are not doing this now, not just the Green Deal situation will be repeated, but even more serious problem could be performed by the European institutions. So here, it is often to speak about the public trust. And we are sitting here or standing here, we are all in favor of European integration, but not this kind of integration. So we should be more critical on things that are happening everywhere in the EU institutions. And I would also speak out loud about public trust, because we have experienced in June how public trust has just disappeared from the European system, and how the European voters became really frustrated about what they have experienced in the last 5 years. It was not just the farmers being on the street, but also businesses arguing that this is not the way, this is not the mandate that they gave to the European Commission to follow, and this is not the European politics they would like to see here. So to have a truly effective green policy, because green policy is still important, and to have a competitive Europe, I would really see that we need objectives that are concentrating on justice and also the rule of law. Because rule of law is very often cited and forced towards the member state, but we cannot really hear that it would be forced towards European institutions. So this element is still missing from the picture. And when speaking about taxpayers' money, well, I would say that the Green Deal situation really shows that we need more respect for European economies, we need more respect for European businesses, we need more respect for taxpayers' money, and we need more respect for the rule of law also in Brussels, also within the European institutions. And I would conclude here, and I think that we will have more time to discuss this further, because I would like to also cover later on what kind of direction the Commission intends to follow now. And this U-turn, where is it really a U-turn, or is it still the same direction? We don't know. But thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you our third speaker, Nicolas Ravaille, who is a lawyer and co-founder of FIDE Advisory. He has worked with several high-level political figures both in France and at the European level, including Laurent Fabius and François Hollande. He has over 2 decades of experience in advising the European Parliament, the Committee of the Region, and the European Commission. His specialty is competition law, and he is an expert in understanding the mechanisms of EU decision-making in that field. He is also active in academia, teaching in particular the EU's economic power relations, both outside the EU and within the EU, at the Paris School of Economic Warfare. Nicolas, the floor is yours. Paul, can you help fix the microphone? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your invitation. Wie Sie auf Deutsch, but I say, like you in Germany, normally I only speak French, not English. I do an exception, so don't be afraid if you hear a strange accent. If it's a sort of English, probably an old English. One day I was in England, and it was impossible to remember how do you say drinkable water. I said, no, drinkable water. Cannot find drinkable water. And I tried. I said potable water, because in France we say eau potable, so I said potable water. But it works. It's just old English. So don't be. I think that it will be the only difficulties for me, because if I understood quite well, I will have to defend the Green Deal and the EU rules. It's why you are expecting for me. A lot of things was already said on. Maybe I will come back on few on them, but I do think that first of all, the question is not do we need or not a Green Deal. We need a Green Deal, not only because of the CO2. You know, on the CO2, there is a lot of scientists debate, and we need that. It's good for Europe to have this kind of discussion. We need a Green Deal because of our health, because of our quality of life. So, according to me, the question is not do we need or not Green Deal. The question is how. How? I'm a lawyer. So, do we need rules? I do think that we need rules, but we need simple rules. We need clear rules. And I understood perfectly that there is, for the time being, a huge discussion on the current EU legislation. Okay, we may have a look on this. The omnibus, the Commission will do it, the Parliament will discuss on it, the Council will discuss on it. also the citizens. You have a lot of way if you want to express your opinion with the EU. You may send petition. I think that a lot of EU citizens, they do not know that, but it's a very, very good way to send a message to the EU institution. So first of all, I think that we need rules. We need clear and simple rules. Okay, we will have to come back on it to check how it works. Before each legislation, we do have impact assessment. You have a very, very, very interesting website, which is the Have Your Say. That's the European Commission. The Commission published all the EU opinion on the subject. So it's I think that the first part we need to focus on. The second one, and you spoke about it, that's our competitiveness. And Green Deal has to work with the EU competitiveness. It means that we need to come back on the energy price. That's probably the most important subject for the European industries. And coming back on that subject, you spoke about taxonomy, you spoke about the price and the differences. I think also that the EU energy market doesn't work. We need to change it. But that's very clear. That's, and you already demonstrate that. We clearly need to find how to have energy and at a good price. And the price, it will come on the solution will come, from the nuclear energy. We cannot manage without nuclear energy. Also, I'm French, so each French are always defending nuclear energy, except maybe some ecologists, but some few Greens. But it's clear. It's clear. Where is the other solution? We do not find it. You spoke about NGOs, but there was also NGOs not paying by the European Commission, but by governments, by industries, explaining they cheated with figure. They cheated with a fact. Also, to explain that the nuclear energy is a huge problem for Europe. It wasn't fact. We published a report. Unfortunately, I think that it's only in French, maybe in English, but you may find it on the economic warfare school, École de guerre économique website, on that, on how the information was manipulated about nuclear energy. What we need also for the Green Deal, it's innovation, 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 and innovation. We do not have enough innovation in Europe. You know, even the American will do the Green Deal, and even under Mr. Trump administration, they will do the Green Deal because the American industry has a lot of innovation, and it's a business. And they will go on the market with that. They will go on the market with that. It's clear. It's not only a question of political decision. Business will speak first. It's clear. We know that, and it comes from each American state, not only California and I don't know what. No. It's really clear. It's a competition. It's a competition. It's also why as European do we have a lot, not French, unfortunately, but as European, specifically the German, do we have a lot of commercial surplus in the world? It's because of our internal market. We all accept that. It's because of the internal market. It's clearly written in the European Commission communication when they did celebrate the 30th anniversary of the internal market. They say that what gives an advantage to the EU industry in the world, it's our rules. It's our common rules. We sell that to the world. And it's a huge advantage for the European industry. We are more than 450 million of consumers. and we do export that. It's what we need. First of all, innovation, and after that, rules to go on the market and to go in the market in the world. Of course, I also think that we do have a problem when we conclude free trade agreements. It's probably if you spoke about Mercosur, it could be a good idea if we want more raw materials in Europe, and we need that. But it's also a problem because if you do not have the mirror clauses, clause miroir, as we said in French, it's unfair for our for the European companies, for our industry. It's completely unfair. And I think that we will have to work on that. Maybe just to conclude, probably you spoke about the NGOs, the current situation. I think that Europe is a democracy. And if we do accept that, we need expertise. Expertise for the Green Deal means that it cannot come only from civil servants, it cannot come only from our universities, it comes also from the civil society. And how do we have to manage that? I do not have the answer, but we will have also to pay for that. What we need is also for that clear rules. When we finance with the EU budget NGOs, we need clearly clear transparency, and we need to know what they do with that money. And it's why I think that it's also very good that a think tank like yours is working on that. And I think that it's very good that the European Parliament may investigate that. It's its job. It's up to the European Parliament to control the European Commission. That's our democracy. I do not see any problem with that. Let's do the job on more and more, and it's good for all of us. Well, so low energy price, more money for innovation, more strategy. It's not only a question of money. More strategy for innovation at the EU level, but also in each member state, state rules, but not only. Budget controlled by the European Commission should be also included. And at the end, let's have a lot of debate on discussion, confrontation on this. I think that it's very good for the European economy and our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all three of you. And I'd start with the first round of questions. I just proceed in the order in which you've spoken, and then we can open it up to the general discussion with the audience. I'd like to come back on one point that you made in your remarks regarding energy stability and the energy prices and the mechanisms that are in place within the EU. It was very interesting to me to hear how much the national price level changes depending on which country decides to set the price. So is that outside the Green Deal framework, or is that a different way by the countries to implement the Green Deal? So is there something that is related to EU regulation or not? That would be the first question. And then the second, the energy market, which was also criticized by Nicolas Ravai, seems to be a profound regulatory problem. And since you've worked on infrastructure questions, could you perhaps give us one or two ideas on how you see the European energy market evolve over the next years? So first, the energy prices on the national level, and then the EU energy market.
First question, answer to the first question. Those national CO2 prices have been implemented in preparation of ETS2. As far as it concerns my country, it's a preparation, and it will shift. It will go over into ETS2 1st of January 27. And as I mentioned, it will increase again energy prices, and especially it will make very, very expensive housing, building houses, and it will increase prices for mobility. So when you are paying, don't know what the price of fuel is here in Belgium. I know what it is in Austria and in Germany. In Austria, it's a little bit lower. It's about 1.6 euros. This will immediately, from 31st of December 26 to 1st of January 27, it will increase about 40 cents. We will have, at least in Austria, more than prices of more than 2 euros for a liter of diesel or petrol. This will be a real outcome of ETS2. Second question, you know, it's the whole ETS scheme. Yeah, when ETS2 and CBAM, of course, comes into full charge, the emission of free certificates, which happens right now to a certain extent, that emission of free certificates will go to zero. There will be no free certificates. So this is why there is no chance for the energy price to come back to a normal level again. And I think I end here, because when I open the real, or one of the real reasons, the refusal of or the sanctions against Russia and the refusal to buy cheap Russian gas and petrol, we open the door for a topic that explodes our framework here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's see if it's going to be picked up by the audience. Otherwise, we have a couple of breaks throughout the day, so there's the possibility to exchange views on that. So now I also again look at the national level, and given your position and your knowledge on particularly national policies, to what extent do you think that governments in Europe can, let's say, not play with, but implement in different ways the Green Deal, so that how much latitude does it actually leave the national governments to do this and not do that? How strict is it in the implementation that the nation states have to do? And connected with this, the question, how much potential do you see for reforming the Green Deal, perhaps by a combination of pressure that would come from the Parliament and from the European Council?
For the question, I might sound radical, but I think that the problem with the Green Deal is that it should be just re-initiated and rediscussed and renegotiated and then reconcluded. Because what happened in the last 5 years does not really create a legal certainty and a proper legal framework for implementation. This is my mainly private opinion about the thing, and I think that when seeing the landscape overall in Europe, we can find that most of the member states are just somehow trying to opt out of the system that is currently there, and looking forward to the deregulation and see what kind of moratorium and different flexibility mechanism could be brought in. So this is mainly the situation. Also in Germany, in France, we can see already some kind of notions also from national politics. And I think that in this situation, the question is how the Commission will react. And we could see in the last couple of weeks, when the Green Deal thing popped up really, that first of all, there is a communication U-turn, and I would like to underline that this is a communication U-turn mainly, speaking about the clean energy package, deregulation, different flexibility solutions proposed toward the businesses and also the member states. And at the same time, when you just look at the technical level of the European Commission, I've just read Director General the DG Climate speaking about the current situation that the US is apparently trying to step back from the green policy aims. That Europe is, according to him, should just step forward and just create a more strict and more rigid framework of green policy, because this will bring in, according to him, green businesses and green investment. But this was not the case in the last 5 years, so I would really doubt whether this would be the situation right now. There is apparently this gap between the political level communication and what the technical level is preparing in the Commission, which is, I would say, even worse than we had before, because now it doesn't even bring the certainty what would happen. Obviously, the clean energy package, the clean industrial package won't solve the situation itself. And I also have doubts about the deregulation thing as well, because just look at the Commission work program for 2025. You see that there are, I think that's something like 2022 deregulation legislative actions in the order, but going back in time, in 2019, there were 30, so there were even more deregulation initiatives of the European Commission. So apparently this deregulation thing is more like communication than real dedication. What can bring a change in this situation? And I would approach this from funding, because often see that in the structure of the European budget, we all know well that there are 3 different envelopes. So one envelope is the agriculture money, one envelope is the cohesion policy money, and the third envelope is the directly managed programs money, and the 3 different envelopes are more or less equal. And I see that, and some of you mentioned innovation, I see this really crucial. So among the EU programs that are in the third envelope, most of the money are really used for aim strategic goals that are set by the Commissions, but never bringing us closer to the real transition, to the real solution, because as we can see in the case of the Timmermans scandal, that money is spent for propaganda. And this is not normal. Instead of this, in the new MFF, and already I think in the existing one, money should be spent to help businesses in the current situation. Because just seeing the SMEs, how much money they can get from the EU programs bubble, so from the third one, you can see that there are programs, the single market program, well, not so heavy, and the money is also moderate. Life, spent for propaganda and mainly for NGOs. Some businesses can benefit, but not that much. And Horizon, which is the crème de la crème thing of innovation, and SMEs cannot really run in this competition, because most of them, especially in Hungary and CE countries, they don't have the capacity to do so. So there is a funding gap also for the transition. Digital Europe program that was meant to help digital transition, to help the green transition. Well, even the Commission decided to let this program evaporate because it was not really successful. So, seeing the landscape, no one offers money for the green transition. At the same time, member states are suffering, and they would like to bring some certainty for the businesses running in the member state. The EU institutions should have responsibility on this, but trying to get rid of it, and we don't know what the future will bring. So this is something on which I would like to see much clearer in the upcoming weeks, because with the new Commission we expect really something more meaningful.
Thank you. And that allows me to nicely transition into questions regarding funding and regulation that I would like to ask you, especially in comparing the European regulation to the American regulation. If I understood you correctly in your earlier statements, then the regulatory environment in the United States produces more green innovation than the regulatory environment in Europe, if I understood correctly. But either way, it seems that the American businesses are more innovative, even in green technologies, than the European ones are, even with the funding of the Green Deal. So how could the regulatory environment change in Europe to, let's say, catch up with the business environment that is proposed in the United States? And perhaps you can, if you would like, do a comparison with the effect of the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, how this is perhaps enhancing the business side in the US, whereas in Europe it's rather slowed down. Please.
Thank you very much. So that's your
Yeah, a
question.
small question. Yeah.
No, I don't think that in the United States it comes from the rules, from the law. I said that maybe I'm not enough clear in English, that it comes from the business, from their way of doing innovation. That's a country who likes business, and they perfectly understand that in the United States, but not only, also in Europe, for their company, or in South America, it's a huge, huge, huge business, and it's why they will do it, even if Mr. Trump is working on the opposite way of thinking, even if the rules are changing in the United States. I think that today or yesterday they decided to stop, I don't know which kind of rules in the field of green transition. But for the European, for us, as I said, that's it's the internal market, our 450 million of consumers, our rules. It's the Commission wrote that. On, I think that we all agree in Europe on that. It's a huge advantage in the world to have rules and to export these rules everywhere we go. Even on, we do not speak with, you speak about the American, but also China. I think that China is a very, very important competitor for Europe in the field of green transition. They are working in the field of green transition. So we cannot be the only one who said that, no, it's not my problem, it's enough, it's too much. Okay, I do agree that, we do have the omnibus in the current agenda, the EU institution agenda, so working on that. Can we stop the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States? It's unfair competition for us. Unfair, I don't know, because we do have a lot of EU money in doing exactly the same thing, and we did it before them. So we do have a huge advantage. The Americans know that perfectly. I think that it does not work enough well for the Europeans. You explained perfectly the three envelope, also for SMEs. For SMEs, that's no. It's clear that it has to be more easy, simple, and it has to change. But speaking about money, we do have the money. The Americans have the money. We cannot stop the American. What do the European company? But they go in the United States. There is only one solution. Go in the United States, take the American citizen money it's helpful for our company in the United States. And what do the Americans? Exactly the same thing. They invest in Europe with their company, taking our citizen money in order to develop their industry, their company. It works like this. And it's why it's very, very important for the European to have scientific expertise, to have this innovation, and there is always a link between innovation and rules. We are not crazy. There is always a link. What we do finance has to become a new rules in order to give an advantage to our company in Europe, but also in the world.
But I understand correctly, in short, we have to maintain our capacity as quote-unquote regulatory superpower that was claimed by the EU.
Yes, that's the EU superpower, and we assume that perfectly. But it's not because it's our superpower that it has to be complicated, difficult to transpose in each member state, that for SMEs it's an impossible way. it's why we need to have this exchange between the society, even NGOs, and the EU decision maker, Commission, Parliament, Council.
Okay. Thank you very much. And with this, it's time to open the discussion to the audience. We have 2 roaming mics. I already see 2 people. So Jamie, could you please give the microphone first to Thomas, and then he can hand it on his neighbor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've got a question, a comment for Mr. Haider. Thank you for your insight, which is very important, referring to the elections campaign that are going on in Germany right now, where I come from, on the reason why we've got so high energy prices. The narrative of the current Minister for Economic Affairs and Environment is that... Pardon? You mean the author of children? Yes. Is that this is only down to, first, the Ukraine war, and second, that we are an export nation, and for God's sake, or unfortunately, the other parts of the world, economies have declined. I've got a different reading as well, and I think you alluded to that this story is not right, because I've seen figures that in Europe, the electricity prices went up 40% in the time from 2000 to 2018. And in Germany in 2018, it was even higher, mainly due to the Green Deal policy. I think it was about a triple as high, 3 times as high as in other regions, like in America and other places. So, and then of course there was a peak, you know, through the Ukraine war. We had to compensate and we had to readjust our energy supply. But now it's actually kind of down on the level it was in 2018. So I would like you to comment on that narrative that actually it's only down to the Ukraine war, why we've got so much energy prices. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you explained. Ah, yeah, okay.
Thank you. Okay, so yes, please.
Okay, Alexander Horn is my name. I just want to raise the question about the Green Deal that you alluded to in terms of, is it a problem for industry, wealth, productivity, innovation? And I would even go further. It's really kind of objectively directed against productivity, innovation, and wealth in Europe. And I don't think there's a way to really reform it, because the main problem is that the direction of the Green Deal is really wrong. And that's not just been clear from what you've all been saying from the panel in terms of what it leads to is higher energy prices, because apart from a bit of nuclear energy, we want to go to just renewables, which is going to be a very, very expensive and a very problematic energy supply. So it's going to be very expensive. And that's a problem for competition, as rightly been said from the panel. But the problem is even worse, because the Green Deal, the orientation, the objective, the premises is to really reduce per capita energy consumption in the EU. And that's a really, really dangerous and a very problematic problem, because it's directed directly against productivity increases in Europe. Because if you look at history, the history of humankind increased the energy use per capita, per head, continuously. And the EU now, and the Green Deal, objectively wants to reduce the energy consumption. Why is it a problem? Because historically, as I said, humankind has used more energy to improve labor productivity, because we use machines. Now we use even artificial intelligence to not just improve physical labor to make it easier and to improve labor productivity, but also brain work. So if we want to redirect the direction of energy use towards less energy use per capita, which is completely opposite of what humankind has been doing over the last thousands of years, really, and very much so during industrialization, where per capita energy consumption really increased. This is completely the wrong direction and really hampers productivity, wealth, and innovation. And the joke, I think, just the last point on this, the joke really is that the Green Deal actually is based on economic stagnation and low productivity, because just because the productivity increases in the European Union have become so low and almost nil, that it's actually possible to base an energy policy which to have an energy policy, a climate policy, which is actually based on the stagnation of the European economy, and then to define this as a good thing to reduce energy consumption, which is completely the wrong way around.
Okay, thank you very much. Then we have two questions here in the center. First, the lady here to the front, and then a few rows later. And Jamie, could you pass the microphone then to the gentleman on the left as the third question, please?
Hello, my name is Clotilde. I work for an NGO. But what I want to ask is about ETS2, because we are very concerned about the social impact of ETS2. You drew attention to that. So my question to you is there any way back? And my question to Mrs. Petri is, how can member states have less that happen, you know, because, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I mean, the impact for us is about the social impact on lowest income groups and social and healthcare service provider, both of them. Thank you.
Okay, got it. Then straight to the back, the lady.
Mrs. Commissioner Petri, you mentioned financial scandals and the issue of lobbies being funded to promote specific political ideologies instead of the transition itself. Don't you think there is time for a reform of the EU funding system as a whole in order to represent more the citizens and SMEs? Is it really normal that huge amounts of money, billions, never reach the citizen and never reach the companies?
Thank you very much. And yeah, then question here to the side, and then could you please bring the microphone to Tony, and then we'll go back to the panel for the answers.
Yeah, just a quick comment or question comment. If you can't beat the competition, you kill it. It's clear. And this is the problem with the EU, because if you look at every energy transition since the Industrial Revolution, it's always been cleaner, but it's always led to a new superpower with the Industrial Revolution, the British, with petrol, the Americans. And democracy actually happened at the end of the Cold War with gas, but also to some extent with nuclear. So as Madame Petri said, we are becoming more dependent on China. So despite the economic aspects, and there I think we should clearly distinguish between this ecology, Mademoiselle Thunberg, which should be seen as a new religious movement, and conservation or preservation, which is a different thing entirely. And I think I'd like the panel to make a few comments on the difference between the two, because of course China is reducing, is exploiting this new religion. You know, Christianity is reducing, so we now have Thunbergism and Greenpeaceism, where there is no religion but Greenpeace, and Thunberg is a prophet. Thank you.
Excellent. So we have the metaphysics in our discussion as well. And then please, Tony, and then to the panel.
Thanks very much. I'm not sure, Robert, that I would agree it's a religion, but I think there is something very, very important that we haven't discussed too much so far. And Professor Rivaro, you touched on it in terms of talking about the importance of the common market. We've got this market, the rules, etc., etc. And that's not very inspiring. It might be an important point, but it doesn't really inspire people so much. And when the Green Deal was launched, von der Leyen said, it's Europe's man on the moon moment. Well, that's quite stirring words, actually. I mean, you mock, but you know, it's Europe's man on the moon moment. And it's that search for moral authority that we haven't discussed. And the European Commission knows it lacks moral authority. And there is a connection with young people. A lot of young people very concerned about the environment. But in that search for moral authority, has the European Commission actually thrown away, a bit like with the point about the question about energy consumption, any regard for human welfare? Because actually it seems to be it has a very obsessive focus on net zero. Actually, maybe one of the things we should be discussing is whether to abandon the net zero target? Is a net zero target born out of rationality, or is it born out of a desire for moral authority? And to talk about how we are looking after the future generations by not destroying the planet. Is actually net zero just a very simplistic way of actually sort of trying to say, well, we're good guys, believe in us? Is it convincing? So could you please, as a panel, address this search for moral authority as well as the economic dimension?
Thank you very much. I suggest that we start with you in the question about the narrative around energy prices and the Ukraine war. Yes, short please, if possible, and you may choose another question also.
As you might have already realized, I'm not a member of the Church of Climate Hysterics of the last days. Not at all. And you're absolutely right, it is a religious movement, but I'm not a member of that. And it is a topic we should talk about. Yeah, sure. But I'm not a member of that church, but I'm an Austrian. And some of you who maybe have in school learned about economy, learned about Austrian School of Economy. Just a few words to that. And a comparison between the US approach to economy and markets and the European approach to economy and markets. In the United States, the markets rule and decide. In the European Union and in whole of Europe, politicians decide to rule the markets, and that's the main problem that we live in. When you are talking to American politicians, not only libertarian politicians, I call myself a libertarian, but when I tell the Americans, I earn a smile. They say, you're European, you all are a kind of socialists. And yes, this is our main problem. We have 7-year plans when you see the EU budget. Plans, even 5-year plans did not work out in the Soviet Union. So why should 7-year plans work out in the European Union? And maybe this socialism in all of our heads, even in the heads of those who claim to be anything else than socialists. Yeah, this is economic, from the economic point of view, is the main problem in Europe. We should not try to rule our markets, and this is the main problem and the main failure of the Green Deal. Green Deal is a direct approach and a direct damage to our markets. And we see it in industry, we see it in the small and middle companies, and we see it in agriculture. We can see anywhere where our socialists in mind try to rule the markets that it goes south, it goes down, and everything is damaged. And this is the situation we have now. The question of the young lady was the social impact of ETS2. Yeah, I told you, I expect a devastating impact. Yeah, when anybody here thought inflation would be over, no, it will not be over. It just has begun. This is the problem. Will we be able to stop that? Is there a way back? I hope so. This is what guys like me are fighting for. Fortunately, we become more and more from every election. Yeah, but my fear too is that it goes much too slow. And now back for the first question. We all know that merit order system contributed to that high prices, especially in Germany, an industrial nation that cuts down its cheap energy supplies. Let's bomb the most important pipeline for cheap energy, yeah, and shuts down nuclear power plants and everything. Yeah, what will be the result? We see what the result is. Germany is together with Austria, on the last places of the 27 EU member states when it comes to how high is the increase of the GDP in the last 5 years. Yeah, this is the outcome when you let socialists damage your economy. We have to stop that, and in democracies, the only way to stop that is in elections. Yeah, and this is my hope, and then I finish that. This is really my hope. My hope does not lie in the parliament. I know what's going on there. I am there, I've been there, seen it, done with it. But my hope lies really in the council, in the member states. There have to be changes in the member states. We need more member states like Hungary, of course, Sweden, Italy right now. We hope there will be a change in France, in Austria, of course, in Germany for the elections, as long as the German Christian Democrats are prisoners of the left with that stupid cordon sanitaire, with that firewall. Yeah, the left, with that firewall, the left can always make sure there will only be left policy, and so-called mid-right, conservative parties, let them do this with them. This has to stop, and then we maybe have a chance to get out, to have a way out of that disaster.
Thank you very much. And I take the second, let's say, set of question, but again, you are too free to choose any other question that was asked. The point that was made by Alexander on essentially an energy policy projection, which is based on the idea that productivity growth is already at zero. What do you make of this assessment? If you share it, how do you think we got to this point, and do we get out of it? And the other question, since you are familiar with EU funds, and Clotilde's question about changing the EU funding as such, what is your perspective on this, please?
Yeah, and I'm also going to refer to the question of how did member states let this happen, because I think that that was a crucial question here. But the first thing first, on productivity and on the situation, I think that here the problem lies somewhere that the EU is creating strategies. Like, I don't know whether you are familiar with it, but in the last 8 years, there were 18 competitiveness strategies of the European Commission, and they just never ever analyzed what happened, what was the outcome of these strategies, what was the implementation of it, did they really work? And I think that this kind of situation has led to this problem about productivity, that some of them were dealing with how this could be increased, but only theoretically. So there was just a sentence that green transition will increase productivity, full stop. So obviously if the impact assessment is missing, then we don't really see if a simple sentence will bring us to a more competitive Europe or a less competitive one, or even regression. And I think that this brings us to the second question, whether the Green Deal could be reformed or recalculated, recalibrated, or we need a new Green Deal. Was it really a deal? I'm not sure. It was a green action. It wasn't really a deal. My opinion is that if we would like to renegotiate this, then the question would be really and truly a reality check to see, first of all, how member state industries would react, where the money flows, what would be the impact on businesses, what would be the impact on employees, what would be the impact on even geopolitical challenges, because this is something that we should deal with. And obviously we need a real impact assessment, because in the case of the Green Deal, just going back in time, there were industries and companies handpicked from Europe, and the impact assessment was performed over them instead of doing a real impact assessment of real businesses. Then thirdly, how did member states let this happen? Well, this is a very question, and I think that at the beginning no one has really seen what kind of damages this could bring. And just think about the reporting system of CSDD, for instance, or CSRD. This is creating a huge administrative burden, but at the beginning it was really just some reports here, some reports there, just for the big companies, and then at the end, for the pressure of the European Parliament, we ended up having like a enormous, huge administrative burden on SMEs, and obviously the majority rules applied in the council that member states were not so keen on this, couldn't really stop the procedure. So this is how we ended up being in this situation. And then the last thing about the funding, because I think that this is really the key point for the future. And there are just some leaks around on the new MFF, how the structure of the funding would change. We can see that the Commission intends to present one huge competitiveness fund. I have doubts how this would work, especially because so far we don't have more information whether this would bring, for instance, more transparency or more proportionality, because just seeing the figures about the EU programs, there is a huge geographical gap. For instance, in Hungary, we get less than 1% of these programs. Even from Horizon, that should finance innovation, that is even lower, we get less than 0.5%. So seeing this, there is obviously an innovation gap from the perspective of funding between the East and the West. But this is also a regional problem, because those regions who are performing very well are getting the more than half of the money that is spent for innovation, and those regions who are underperforming are just getting tiny portions of the EU money. So this should be also taken on board. And whatever the new MFF, what kind of structure is going to be followed, I think that this should bring more transparency and also more responsibility for the taxpayers' money. Because the problem here is often that in the case of money spent by the institutions, there are no any measures where the effectiveness of spending is measured or analyzed. And in the new MFF, we might have less money, we will have more challenges. This just simply cannot run this way. There should be a new deal on spending EU money in the future.
Thank you very much. I'd just connect to the point that you made about the effectiveness, because that is something that you might perhaps also share your thoughts with, and I'd combine it with the questions by Robert and the comment by Tony on the balance, if there is one, between rationality and ideology in how the Commission devised, approached, and then created the Green Deal. How do you see, also going back to the impact assessment and how well or not well that was done, so how do you see the effectiveness of this and the, well, influence of rationality versus ideology in creating the Green Deal?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. It's also an important question. First, I'm not an EU civil servant, so I'm not here to explain how the Commission works, and I can not speak on its behalf. But as a lawyer, what we see, I think that what the Commission, but also the Parliament, the EU institution want is to check, to see, to hear both the industry, NGOs, and they're trying to find a solution in between. But BDI in Germany, MEDEF in France, they do have a lot of power to express how it's important or not for EU economy.
So the industry associations.
The industry associations, yes, sorry. If it's purely ideological, I don't think that, as you said, that Europe is a socialist economy, but if it is, I have to admit that it performs a lot for a socialist economy. Do you know how many surplus do we have in the United States? In 2023, more than 158 billion for good. So that's the EU surplus in the United States. And it's approximately 10 billions more each year, except between 2022 and 2023 due to the economic correction from the United States to the EU with the Russian-Ukrainian war on the energy
gas supply from the US.
prices. So, what do we want as European? We want that surplus. In that surplus, you have 85 euros, it's Germany, and you have 40 billions, it's Italy. France, it's approximately nothing, but if I'm able to laugh about my country on my set, we are above that. But coming back, how can we protect this surplus in the United States? What are we doing? Yesterday, the EU Commissioner for Trade was in Washington and he negotiated to buy more schist gas, liquid gas from the United States to be sold in the European Union. It's a trade-off, explaining that don't go in an economic war with us, don't use your taxation on the EU surplus in the United States, and in exchange, we will buy more liquid gas, schist gas, which is completely forbidden in Europe, but allowed in the United States, and we will buy it. I cannot imagine that. It's unfair. Is that the good way to do it? I don't think so. I agree that Europe is not a socialist economy. We do have more than 158 billion has surplus in the United States. We want to protect that, and he wants to protect that. We want to be competitive. We need to decrease the energy price, and you need to be, it's a question of resilience if you speak under the European language. As French, I will prefer the question of sovereignty, of EU sovereignty, and it's why I explained just before that we need nuclear energy, because even if I support green energy, it will not be enough, it will not be efficient, so it's why we have this solution, and we have to take it together if we want to be more efficient in the international competition. But no, I don't think that it's an ideological point of view in the EU. We see the Chinese doing the green transition, the American, as you said, they do it with business. So we have to do it also. It's not an ideological question, even if I have to admit that it may have some influence because we are Europeans and we like to have such discussion on ideological point of view. Sometimes it's not so bad, but not too much. I agree.
Excellent. So I see you and Tony having a cup of coffee and continue
Yes.
to exchange viewpoints. I'd go to the audience once more for 3 questions and put a challenge. Please make it a yes or no question. Challenge also to you. Answer maybe with one explanatory sentence, yes or no, and then use it also to give your concluding remarks. So, first question, please.
Thank you. Question to Maître Ravaille. First of all, let me congratulate you for the courage to defend the EU political regime. There are easier audiences to do that than today. So we need discussion. So that's there will be a yes and no question.
Looking forward to it.
You speak about rules, and we need rules, and of course we all agree. And you speak of European citizens and European democracies, the European democracy. But of course, there's no such thing as European citizens. There's French citizens, Belgian citizens, Hungarian citizens. There's a Hungarian democracy, etc., etc. So these rules in a democracy are set by the people, equal autonomous people. There's no such thing in Europe. So are these rules that are defended by you, the political regime that are defended by you, is it really a democracy? Or is it rather a technocracy that is telling us we need this because we have decided that we need this? And isn't this the the cause of the populist revolt that we see all across Europe.
Thank you very much. I see the second question over there, the young lady first, and the third question to the microphone to Bill, please.
Hello, this is a question for Nicholas. You alluded to the fact that people in Europe can petition the European Parliament.
Can you speak a bit louder, please?
You alluded to the fact that people in Europe could petition the European Parliament. Can you give me an example where the European Parliament looked at a petition and changed policy, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Bill, please.
Okay, sorry, my question is also to Nicolas. Nicolas, you mentioned and celebrated the fact that the EU is a market of 450 million consumers. I've heard Emmanuel Macron making the same point. Why 450 million consumers? Why not 450 million producers and innovators? Is it not the way you frame it that actually leads you down a regulatory rabbit hole? If we consume, there's a need to regulate our activities. I suggest to you that the US views people as potential innovators and wants to release their productive capabilities. And very quickly, who do you think is going to win, their business model or the EU regulatory rules model?
Thank you very much. Then I suggest we start with you for the answers, and then also the closing statement at the same time, and then you, and then finally, MEP Haider. Please.
I will reply to each question, but I think that the second one is more a question for a member of the European Parliament than for than for me. That do not underestimate the European Parliament. You know, influence with petition, it's like in finance. We do as we call that in French effet de levier, level effect in English, but I don't know.
Leverage.
Leverage. Thank you. Yes, that's leverage. It's really efficient. You can complain about how the law is applied in the EU, but you can also suggest to change the law. So I'm not naive. I know that it's not enough. I just said it's one way to be helpful. Huh? But use it. It's really helpful. For the first question, if you can pose the question in the EU, it's just because we are a democracy. It's clear. So I'm not defending something like a political regime. It's not the case. I think that it's impossible to have one idea if we do not have confrontation. So it could be ideological, it could be technical, I don't know, scientific expertise. It's really what we need. It's really what we need. So I do support that, and I'm quite sure that I can agree that there is too much technocracy. It's too heavy. You know, I think that one of our difficulties in the EU it's the time. It's the time to take a decision. It's too long. On what is it too long? What is this process so long? It's why, because it's a question of legitimacy that the Commission wants to consult, that they do have impact assessment, they do have this website I spoke about, Avion-Say, etc. It's why we need to evaluate each impact it could have for the industries, for the society, for I don't know what. But I think that's one of our big issues. It's a time to decide more than being a democracy or not. We need to listen 360 degrees around us, check, evaluate. Even when I used to work for the European Commission, you know, for the former Horizon program, it was the case. You may have scientific evidence explaining the opposite thing. The one thing on the opposite, on both were scientific evidence. It's really easy. On coming to
to 50 million consumers instead of
innovation.
producers, but very quickly, please.
Okay, it's good to have consumers. It's good that our consumers have a lot of money to consume, and to consume good products in the EU. But we need more innovation. You know, the debate, it's more what is innovation in Europe. As French, we think that innovation is something very new. It needs a technological rupture. But when I spoke with Dutch people, they explained to me, no, innovation is not that. It's a way to go faster on the market. And that's the gap in Europe. We are still good in innovation, but we are not good to go very quickly on the market. And when it's the market, of course, we do rules, and those rules will protect our innovation inside the EU and around the world. But I think that, of course, yes, we need also to have if we can have also 450 innovators, I agree. 450 business operators, I agree also. It's clear that it's not enough in our mind, and we really have to develop that. As you said, it's a question of money, but we need to have more money. We need to be allowed in each member state to use more the member state money. That's called state aid rules in the EU. But it's not enough, not only money, it's also a question of culture on a way to work also together. You are perfectly right. You know, we do have the same problem. It's not only east or west part of Europe. We do have the same thing in France. That's between city and countryside. And it's exactly the same problem as you said.
Okay, so question of money and also of mindset, or perhaps the other way around, is what probably Bill argue. Then quickly too, maybe I can suggest to you the question of the mindset of the consumer market or the innovation production market, because this is something that perhaps you might know from your professional experience also. So what are your thoughts on that and the concluding statement, please?
I think that here the perspective is missing going local, because very often the knowledge we have about the European market is like just the big cities, we have just notions about what's going on at a local level. And somehow decision making, especially about innovation and things such as the Green Deal or any kind of green policy initiative, should go local, have a reality check at the local sphere, because otherwise it would be really like an elephant tower decision making. And I think that this was one of the key point of the Green Deal problem, that decisions were taken at the top level while life is running at the bottom. And I would like to see changes on this, because I also have fears about the clean industry package, that the same thing would be repeated, because this is a question of methodology. So this is a question of modus operandi of regulation, of lawmaking, of policy making, where I think that local role players would be more vocal for the European institutions. And as for the conclusions, so I would bring in the same three dimensions I also try to cover during my presentation. So the first is, speaking of the future of the Green Deal, I think that we should concentrate on recovery. So we need a new deal instead of a Green Deal now that really covers all aspects of economy and renegotiates the current situation, the current status quo that is here. It is like now or never in this moment, I truly believe. Then secondly, lawmaking and regulation, as I said, bringing in the local and also bringing in the SME dimension, because we had the Budapest Declaration during our presidency, where we refer to the need of for an SME check during the policy making and lawmaking. So I think that a real SME impact assessment should be included into the decision making. So seeing what kind of impacts a new law, a new deal, a new policy solution will have on SMEs. So this is a crucial second point. And last but not least, obviously the financing thing, a budget reform that brings in simplification, that brings in transparency, that somehow stops scandals and misuse of money, such at the same as we have seen in the case of the Timmermans scandal. And when speaking about these discrepancies about the EU programs, how they are running, I think that EU money shouldn't be just for big businesses, because currently it is business for the bigs, but instead it should be prosperity for the smalls. So this is all for the single market, actually, we are working for.
Thank you very much. And then the last question, petitions in European Parliament, or aspect that you'd like to elaborate on, and your closing statement, please.
Yeah, yes and no, or what?
Oh, you can start with
what
that
happened
and then
to yes and no?
Let me just simply ignore that.
Yeah. No, I've been to my municipality council for more than 30 years. I've been in national parliament for 11 years, and for the last nearly 6 years, I'm here in the European Parliament. And guess where you have the best connections to the people. I don't need to tell you. Yeah, here you can forget it. Unfortunately, really. But the lower the level, the more closer you are with your voters. That's a normal thing. You were talking about the New Deal. Yeah. For final statement from me, I think we don't need that Green Deal at all. It damages our industry, it damages our economy, our agriculture, everything. I think we should put it there where it belongs to be, and this is the dung heap of history.
Thank you very much for the concise closing statement. I think that was rather clear. Before we head into the well-deserved lunch break, which you will find out here downstairs in the France room, I just draw attention to the case that you found on your seats. There is a QR code on the bottom of the paper, and the report that Frank Ferretti just mentioned is available through this link, also on our MCC Brussels website. And as always, if you're interested in staying up to date, follow us on the social media and subscribe yourself to the newsletter if you'd like. And with this, thank you very much for your attention and for your time, and happy lunch break.